So this matter is one that stands alone in a unique place in this nation's history. It does? What? Unfortunately, we are now at a place in time that is fraught with complexities, rendering the requirements of a sentencing hearing, should one be necessary, difficult to execute. Okay, that's the second time he said that. Wow. If necessary, again, is adjourned to November 26, way after the election. Oh, Andrew Weissman and George Conway and Liz Cheney blown out. Judge Merchan and Alvin Bragg are now losing their last desperate effort to get Trump sentenced before the election. And this is fresh out of the oven from New York courts. You can see Merchan is now going to be caving. They wanted Trump sentenced. They're not going to get it done in time. And here is what the judge wrote to everybody, including Todd Blanche, which is Trump's defense attorney, and Matthew Colangelo, which is the government prosecutor who came from the DOJ, from Biden's office, to go and specifically help Alvin Bragg, who's incompetent, to create some sort of a rigged prosecution against Trump. Remember, this is former Biden, number 3 DOJ, one of the highest positions in there. He left that office to go prosecute Trump. This amazing opinion is coming out on September 6th from Juan Merchan, acting judge. He says, all right, dear counsel, both sides, by letter dated August 14th, so Trump sent a letter. They say Trump requested an adjournment of the sentencing, currently scheduled for September 18th, 2024, and until after the 2024 election. But there's another reason, okay? It's not just about the election. It's because there's about immunity. There's a bunch of immunity, that immune evidence that was brought into the trial. Remember, they talked about Madeleine Westerhout, the White House Oval Office coordinator. We had the comms director, Hope Hicks, all immune stuff that should have never come into the trial that they need to settle, which is why sentencing shouldn't happen right now. He argues that adjournment is necessary to provide adequate time, says Trump, to assess and pursue the appellate options in the event this court denies his motion to avoid the impact that a public sentencing could have on him and his prospects in the upcoming election. So we see Merchan is framing this just from the beginning about election stuff. He attempts to bolster his application by repeating a litany of perceived, this he's talking about Trump, and unsubstantiated grievances from previous filings that do not merit this court's attention and will not be addressed in this decision. Now, the people, Alvin Bragg, the people that the judge loves, they state that they defer to the court on the appropriate post-trial schedule. And when we saw this, when we read this the first time around, we were calling Alvin Bragg pathetic and spineless and weak and a coward, because they're going to defer to the court on the schedule. These were the same people that said we have to have this trial now. They were going so fast that they actually, remember, replaced the January 6th case with this case. They accelerated it because Judge Chutkan did the right thing and actually paused the case while the immunity was pending with the Supreme Court. So that did not happen here. When all of the other 3 cases failed in Fannyland, in Florida, and when DC was up on appeal, then they accelerated this. They put this trial back in place because of the urgency. So then when push comes to shove, the government prosecutors suddenly defer to the court after screaming at us that Trump stole the 2016 election because he mislabeled or something, fraudulently labeled payments to his attorney. They're going to defer to the court now? Okay. But nonetheless, the people, Bragg, the prosecutors, to assist the court with its determination, identify several reasons why an adjournment would be appropriate. Well, that's very curious, Judge. Why is this postponement suddenly now appropriate? Let's see. Now, on August 29th, Trump informed this court by letter that he'd filed a second removal notice, which we read, with the Southern District of New York. In the motion, it was denied by Judge Hellerstein, like immediately, like within hours. Remember that? And defendant is currently appealing the decision to the Second Circuit Court of Appeals, where Trump was today dealing with another appeal on another rigged case called the E. Jean Carroll case. He was there for oral arguments in the Second Circuit. So the judge, Merchan, he writes from New York, he says, as a threshold matter, this court finds that despite the prosecutor's stated neutrality, as they claim, they present concerns in their letter of August 16th. Yeah. In a manner which seemingly supports Trump. That's great. Because that's exactly what we said. We're like, okay, they're just being weak here. They know that the Supreme Court shredded what they did here because what they did was unconstitutional. And their case wasn't appealed at the Supreme Court, but they were doing the things that the Supreme Court said they shouldn't be doing. Or they should have handled it differently like Judge Chutkan did, but they didn't. So the prosecutors know that. Bragg knows that. Colangelo knows that. So they can't oversell it. So they're like, well, we think we want this done quickly, expeditiously. Like there's no reason for delay. We're ready. But the judge knows, no, that's not right. The people certainly certainly do not oppose, and a careful reading of their response can fairly be construed as a joinder of the motion. Oh, wow. So this judge is interpreting the government as basically agreeing, like a joinder is kind of agreeing with Trump. Now, notably, had Trump been sentenced on July 11th, as they originally scheduled, there would, of course, have been no cause for the delay, says the judge. However, on July 1st, the Supreme Court of the United States rendered a historic and intervening decision in the immunity case. That's nice that this judge recognizes it is intervening. He could have paused this case like Judge Chutkan did. She did the right thing on it. For whatever we say about Judge Chutkan, we say a lot, she did the right thing on it. She actually paused the case. She did not want to. We had to drag her across the line, kicking and screaming to do it, but she did it. This judge did not, and he just kept the train moving forward. Now, relying on that decision, Trump immediately sought leave of this court to file a New York motion to set aside the verdict, right? Supreme Court says there is, in fact, immunity. We have three buckets. We have stuff that is absolutely immune. If it's official presidential duty, you can't be prosecuted for doing your job. You're immune. Now, in light of the Supreme Court's decision, writes Judge Merchan, which this court must interpret and apply, the court granted Trump leave to file his motion. So then Trump tried to adjourn sentencing, right? So the court said, okay, well, let's talk about immunity. And then they said, well, if we're going to be talking about immunity, we have to move the sentencing date, which is on the 18th, until after resolution of his motion was not opposed by the people in their letter. So to allow full briefing by both parties and this court the time necessary to adequately consider the motion, sentencing was rescheduled initially to September 6th. That's today, right? They want to get this thing done. So it was already scheduled for July 11th. We're way past that. Then it was scheduled for September 6th. We're past that. It was then adjourned again to September 18th, coming up soon, following the filing of a third defense motion for this court's recusal, because this court is biased. This judge donated twice to Joe Biden, talked to his daughter about Trump's tweets, how he does not like those tweets when he was the president. So he's got a bias there. And the daughter, who is a very close connection to the judge since he's, her father, she was getting a ton of money working for authentic campaigns, making funds off solicitations off this case, right? Soliciting money, donate to this so we can beat Trump, donate to Adam Schiff so we can beat Trump, and so on. Now, this now means that any adjournment of even 1 week beyond September 18th will bring us approximately 41 days within the presidential election. He goes, oh man, so even if we put it to like September 25th or something, like we're in big trouble, because then it's 41 days. So this matter is one that stands alone in a unique place in this nation's history. It does? What? We're in a unique place in this nation's history, and this court has presided over it since its disgusting, illegitimate inception, from arraignment to jury verdict, and a plenitude of motions and other matters in between. Merchan writes, were this court to decide, after careful consideration of the Supreme Court's decision in Trump, that this case should proceed, so it's a question, it will be faced with one of the most critical and difficult decisions a trial court judge faces: the sentencing of a defendant found guilty of crimes by a unanimous jury of his peers, which you just throw that sentence right in the garbage, right? This trial was rigged. There was no unanimous jury also, by the way. Remember, they had to indict Trump or convict Trump, find a verdict against Trump. He has not been convicted yet because the sentencing has not happened. But they needed to find against him on the basis of other crimes element. And within that element, it was intent to commit another crime. What other crime? Doesn't matter. Didn't have to be unanimous. They could pick any other crime they wanted. So this is a lie. It's just a flat out lie. There were other elements there. And yeah, they needed to be unanimous on that, but it was Trump had the intent to commit another crime. Well, what other crime? Shouldn't that other crime have elements to it? Or the jury should at least be unanimous on what that other crime is? No, the judge said no. As long as there was intent to commit some other crime, that was enough. That's all the statute said. So this adjournment request has now been decided in the same way this court has decided every other issue that has arisen since the origination of this case. Wow, this is pathetic. Applying the facts and the law after carefully considering the issues and respective arguments of the parties to ensure the integrity of the proceeding is protected, justice is served, and the independence of this judiciary is kept firmly intact. Now, if Trump's motion is denied, the law requires the imposition of sentence following a guilty verdict without unreasonable delay, right? So Trump is now going to be challenging this on immunity. And if that comes back and it's denied, then we'll go to sentencing. They say the public's confidence in the integrity of our judicial system, which has been evaporated by cases like this and judges like this, demands a sentencing hearing that is entirely focused on the verdict of the jury and weighing of the aggravating and mitigating factors, free from distraction or distortion. Now, as we're reading this, we're also trying to tease out any insight. Let's say sentencing does go forward, and I don't think that it will. I think that the immunity decision wrecked their case. And we saw that clearly. And putting Trump in prison would have been way too much to bite off. So he's going to use this as an excuse to get out of it. But as we're reading this, what if he doesn't, right? What if he does try to sentence Trump? Is he giving us any hints here? Is he identifying any aggravation that he's seeing that's going to increase the penalty and might lead to Trump's incarceration? Is he identifying any mitigating factors that might justify him giving Trump probation and not incarcerating him at all? He says the verdict must be respected and addressed in a manner that is not diluted by the enormity of the upcoming presidential election. This is insane from this guy. These guys have no consistency or set of values as far as I can tell, because the enormity, they were saying it was irrelevant. That's why Trump was gagged. The First Amendment is dead to them. They were talking about the orderly administration of justice, external circumstances be damned, and we're going to carry on the train. Likewise, if one is necessary, the defendant has the right to a sentencing that respects and protects his constitutional rights. Oh, they must be so mad. Unfortunately, we are now at a place in time that is fraught with complexities, rendering the requirements of a sentencing hearing, should one be necessary, difficult to execute. Okay, that's the second time he said that. Wow. So yeah, I think sentencing is going bye-bye. Thus, in accordance with certain of the grounds submitted by Trump and the reasons for the adjournment that even Alvin Bragg agreed on, coupled with the unique time frame in which this matter currently finds itself. What are you talking about? A unique time frame? It's the same election. Why was 1 week from now any different than September 18th or July 11th or September 6th? What are you talking about? A unique time frame all of a sudden? This is a red herring. This is a cope. It's not about a unique time frame. It's about the immunity decision. The decision on the immunity motion and the imposition of sentence will be adjourned to avoid any appearance, however unwarranted, that the proceeding has been affected by or seeks to affect the presidential election in which Trump is a candidate. This judge is trying to back out of this. Okay, this is a kid who got caught with his hand in the cookie jar. Now he's trying to talk his way out of it. He says, I don't want to be responsible for interfering with the presidential election. I wonder if he got a talking to. I wonder if somebody came and had a conversation with him, because he hasn't cared about the election at all this entire trial. Neither has Judge Chutkan. They've just been moving forward as though it doesn't matter at all. Now suddenly out of nowhere, it pops out. We're going to adjourn the sentencing because we're too close to the election? That's weird, because for the last 2 years, you didn't care about the election. This court, they say, oh wow. The court is a fair, impartial, and apolitical institution. Adjourning decision on the motion and sentencing, if such is required, should dispel any suggestion that this court will have issued any decision or imposed any sentence to give an advantage to or to create disadvantage for any political party or candidate. Wow. So most of this opinion feels like it's the judge vouching for himself. Like, obviously this is the right thing to do, but to be honest, the whole case should have been adjourned, right? They brought it to prosecute Trump in the middle of the political season. Now, when it's the big end game, it's like, it's time to do this thing. Like, you've been doing it for 2 years. You ready to go? Like, you just climbed the entire ladder. You have to jump. No, I'm not going to jump. What? You came up, like, be brave, right? Dive into the pool. And they're not doing that here. Adjournments for sentencing are routinely granted, often several times. This is more cope in any number of other criminal matters pending in this courthouse, particularly unopposed from Bragg, for reasons ranging from personal circumstances to scheduling needs of the parties involved. This is like writing for the left, okay? Because they're going to have a meltdown. Andrew Weissman and George Conway, oh gosh, can't wait to see what those knuckleheads have to say. And they're going to be just losing it. And he's saying, well, we do this all the time, so it's okay. And again, now we're going back to routine. So now he's like, Trump's like a regular routine criminal again, I guess. So given the unique facts and circumstances of this case, there is no reason why this defendant should be treated any differently than any other. Oh, that's the punchline of this whole motion. There's no reason Trump should be treated any differently than any others. Okay, well, you prosecuted him in spite of his immunity. You brought in convicted perjurers to testify against him. You didn't allow any evidence to be admitted from Trump's people, including from the FEC expert witness who would have come in and explained how all of these financial transactions work. You didn't allow that to happen. So Trump got gagged. Do you regularly gag criminal defendants? No, you don't. This is not a decision that this court makes lightly, but it is the decision which in this court's view best advances the interest of justice. So let's see what he says. Therefore, it is hereby ordered that the decision on Trump's immunity motion to set aside the jury verdict and to dismiss the indictment will be handed down off calendar on November 12th after the election. November 5th, the election, November 12th. Oh no. That is going to be the immunity motion decision. And therefore, it's ordered that sentencing on this matter, if necessary, again, is adjourned to November 26th, way after the election. Oh, Andrew Weissman and George Conway and Liz Cheney blown out. Ordered that Trump's motion to preclude the people from filing a pre-sentence memorandum is denied. The people's submission will be filed under seal. And so before sentencing occurs, people create PSRs or pre-sentence reports, or actually usually probation does that, but sentencing memos, right, come from the prosecutors and from the defense, and everybody's given the judge their perspective. Defense says probation. Government says 100 years in jail, prison. And the probation says we'll split the middle somewhere. So if the sentencing ultimately happens, then those will become relevant. I don't think that it's going to happen. And this is this judge trying to reverse himself out of this, right? He's put himself in this situation. Now he's backpedaling. And this is great news for Trump, obviously. Okay. Sentencing before the election was an insane prospect. And I think this judge recognized that, right? The pressure is way too hot. They can't sentence Trump to prison. And so we're going to be here to continue to cover this, my friends. Thank you for subscribing and following along wherever it is you're joining us. We'll look forward to seeing you back here on our next segment.